So let's talk about how wineries can actually use branding, visuals, and strong website to grow with confidence and step into international market over the next few years. Today, the first encounter with the winery almost always happens online. Before people ever visit, they already look up the brand, partners check the website before a meeting, and tourists often choose where to go just by the photos or the atmosphere a winery creates online. And yes, fairs and tastings are still a huge part of the wine culture. That hasn't changed at all, but at the same time, digital has become a whole new space. A place where a winery can express its character, its visual identity, its story that's far beyond a local audience. When we talk about the international market for wineries, it's really about much more than just finding importers. It's also about travelers who are playing their roads, about distributors searching for the new producers, and about journalists and gastro media who tell stories about wine culture and build trust around winery that's far beyond the local market. And all of these people, even though they're very different, actually have one thing in common. Their first impression of a winery always happens online. That's where a winery introduces itself for the very first time, clearly, visually, and accessibly. So the first group that actually comes into this space is the business side. That's partners, importers, and distributors. This audience thinks in terms of structure and clarity. They need to see the professional, transparent brand they can trust. Most of the time, their decision starts with the website. This is where they form their first serious impression, and this is also their main working tool. So they usually look for very concrete things. For example, what kind of product the winery offers, what production volumes are, which grape varieties they're working with, and what certifications they have. And of course, how logistics and export are organized. Language matters a lot here. English is absolute must, and adding French, Spanish, or German is a strong advantage for European markets. When all this information is presented clearly and visually, the website becomes a real business card that works for the winery during negotiations. But business partners are not the only ones coming to the winery online. There is another group that follows right after, that's visitors. The people who actually want to come, feel the place, and experience it in person. Wine tourism is growing very fast, and tourists make almost all their decisions online. They start with the photos, they look for the atmosphere, they read winery story, and they search for tours and tasting experiences. For them, emotion matters more than production numbers. And strong website helps them feel the character of a winery and turns a simple page visit into a personal invitation to come. They usually pay attention to the very specific things: the atmosphere of the place, the vineyards, the tasting room, the tasting menus, events. A good digital presence makes a winery visible to tourists from the US, Germany, France, the UK, the Northern Europe. These are exactly the audiences actively searching for the wine roads. And then there is another group that might not reach out directly, but still has a huge impact on how the winery is seen in the world. This is media, journalists, bloggers, and gastro experts. They rarely contact wineries personally, but they strongly shape reputation. Before publishing anything, they carefully study how the brand presents itself. They look at the story behind the winery, its production philosophy, what makes it unique, the visual identity, the tone of voice, and the quality of photography. A strong digital presence helps a winery look professional and relevant. And very often that's exactly what determines whether the brand gets noticed at all. So when you look at all these groups together, business partners, tourists, and media, one thing becomes very clear. Digital is not an addition anymore. That's the first real step toward international growth. Digital doesn't replace personal meetings, fairs, or tastings. It works together with them. The website, the branding, and visual presentation shape the first impression. They communicate values, they build trust with every audience, with buyers, with tourists, with distributors, and with media. And when storytelling, design, and structure works together, the winery becomes easier for the world to understand and easier to connect with. That's what makes the international market feel not overwhelming, but truly accessible. And once winery steps into digital space, the very first thing people actually notice is the visual side of the brand. The colors, the typography, the photography, the way everything is composed. All this creates atmosphere and emotional connection long before someone ever tastes the wine or visits the vineyard. That's exactly why we put so much focus on this stage. Inside our studio, we regularly create visual studies. We use them to explore new, unique ways a brand can express its character, to see how winery can look and feel and speak visually before anything is built. A strong visual identity can communicate origin, production philosophy, and the spirit of the place far more clearly than long descriptions ever could. One of these studies is our concept for the Solevier, inspired by Peneda's region. In this project, we explored feeling of the earth, light, seasonality, and craftsmanship. That's deep tones, bold typography, slow transitions between sections, a calm, soft palette, and a strong sense of a respect for the region's roots. It's not just design, it's complete visual narrative, shaped around the aesthetics of slow luxury that define many of the next generation European wineries. When we talk about digital ecosystem of a winery, we are really talking about a simple, well-structured foundation. It's a system where every element works together to elevate the brand and to support different international audiences. At the center of the system is always a modern website. This is the space where all core materials come together. The winery story, the wine collections, the B2B resources, the catalog, the digital presentations, and one more important thing to understand here is there is not about doing everything at once. Digital growth works best when you take one step at a time. A winery can start with just one or two elements that feel most relevant right now, and then expand the system over time when the business is ready for the next step. There are several core components most wineries usually choose from, and each of them can become that first and most strategic move, depending on the goals, priorities, and the stage the winery is at. One of these is the story page, origin, philosophy, and the atmosphere. This is the space where a winery shows its roots, its heritage, its philosophy and values, its connection to the land, the sense of seasonality and craftsmanship, and its visual aesthetics. This page creates emotional resonance, and it helps people understand a winery on a much deeper level. Not just as a producer, but as a place with identity and character. Another important element of the ecosystem is the wine collection page. This is where a portfolio is presented in a clean, minimal, and structured way. Here, people explore the grape varieties, tasting notes, recommendations, bottle photography, sometimes vineyard maps for each wine, and technical sheets especially for sommeliers and retail partners. This page helps both consumers and professionals quickly understand the range and navigate the offering easily. For wineries that's actively working with the international market, the B2B area for partners and importers become especially important. This is a compact but very practical space that simplifies communication with distributors and buyers. Here, partners usually find full assortment with characteristics, supply conditions, certifications, production volumes, digital catalog you can download, and ready-to-use media assets. When this section is well organized, it saves time and it clearly signals professionalism. Many wineries also choose to create digital catalog as a web page or a small micro-landing. This is a modern alternative to the heavy PDF files, and it's mobile-friendly, always up-to-date, easy to edit, fully aligned with visual identity, and instantly accessible from any country. A digital catalog makes a winery easier to understand and much more approachable for partners. And for events and exhibitions, there is digital presentation. This is usually micro-landing or a compact mini site created especially for offline events. The flow is simple. A person scans QR code, sees the story, explores the collection, opens the technical sheets, and immediately finds the context. This format replaces PowerPoint with something lighter, clearer, and much more contemporary, and it works especially well on the international events. When it comes to digital growth, it's important to see it as a journey, not as something that has to be done all at once. What really matters is having a clear direction and then moving forward step by step, gradually building the brand and expanding its international presence over time. In real life, every winery follows its own path, shaped by its priorities, its scale, its market, and how ready the team is for digital transformation. This path often includes a few key focus points: refreshing the visual identity, to clarify winery's visual language and express its atmosphere, roots, and character; building a modern digital home, a website that tells the story beautifully and clearly; creating a digital catalog with up-to-date collections, grape varieties, and tasting notes; then developing digital presentation for partners and trade fairs. That's a light modern alternative to PowerPoint. The next one is setting up basic marketing communication. That's simple updates that keep brand visible and alive. And then that's CRM tools, that's managing inquiries, booking tastings, and automating communication with partners and tourists. It's optional and on the early stages, but it can be added when the winery is ready. With strong materials and a clear structure and a modern digital identity in place, expanding into international markets becomes a natural next move. Not something overwhelming, but something achievable. And this is the most important thing about this entire process. Digital is not a single project, it's a path. There is no checklist you have to complete in one go. Each winery can start with what feels most important right now, at the phase that truly fits the brand. And if you'd like to understand which digital steps would bring the most value to a winery, you can always reach out to us. We'll help you see where it makes the most sense to start and what can be improved over time without large investments.